We are heading into week 12. There's a bunch of bye weeks. Thanksgiving's coming up. We're hitting that second stage of the NFL season. We know who's good. We know who's not good. We know there's going to be one surprise team coming. We have a sense of who the 7 contenders are. Biggest surprise for you after 11 weeks? You can say anything. Thing you're most shocked by?
The Jets.
Rick, you go the Jets. See, I feel like I picked the Jets to win the AFC East, but I also was fully aware of this alternate universe where everything went wrong, and that's what's happening.
All right, so just the fact that I haven't bought into the hype over here. I live in New York. I grew up with all Jets fans, and I've never been one to say, "Well, this is the year." They drafted Denzel Mims. This is the year. They got Elijah Moore. This is going to be the year. And then I fell for it. I've said
you
earlier,
fell for it hard. There's
bro.
MVP Rodgers videos of you on the internets.
Shameful. And that whoever runs that freezing takes or that old takes exposed, he has no problem posting that every single time the Jets lose a game of me saying that Rodgers is going to be MVP. And
we all have those.
We've got them out there. It's fine. I will say this. Fell so hard this year for the Jets because I looked at the AFC and I'm like, there's an opening here. I didn't think Buffalo was going to be what they were. I had a feeling Miami would take it down. And I thought, obviously New England, I was like, this is the year there's a window. The seas are parting and the talent and the clip of us talking week 1 has gone viral again. It's been reposted and I still don't regret what I said. You go top to bottom on that roster. The names are outstanding. And I guess I got caught up in it, and it's not fantasy football, and there is something called chemistry. And when you fire your coach 5 weeks into the season, that's not always going to be the greatest decision. And at the end of the day, I fell for it hard, and hand up. I fucked up. I was wrong. Jets suck, and it's a shame because they're going to try to rebuild this thing. But
by the way, everything you just said, we could probably just insert Sixers. As a voiceover for every piece of that. I fell for it. I didn't realize it was going to go sideways, but we knew this was the risk with the Jets. Rodgers is old. Rodgers coming off major surgery. The Son Reddick thing was weird. Saleh had never had a winning season. They were trying to shoehorn this Rodgers thing into the Jets. They're the Jets. Bad things happen with the Jets. I fell for it too. I picked them over Buffalo. And what both of us missed is what Sal nailed before the season.
Yeah.
What if this is the Josh Allen year? And now it looks like it's the Josh Allen year.
He's your MVP through 12 weeks. Josh Allen's your MVP. And, fantasy is so funny on these Sundays. I know it's he's looking, it's Schadenfreude almost, but his tweet is so prescient now that he did on the day, the Monday of week 1, where he's basically just having it on record right now. I think this Aaron Rodgers thing is going to be a massive failure and everyone's going to get fired at the end of the year. The only wrong thing about it wasn't the end of the year. It was before even Thanksgiving and he was right. So I was wrong on the Jets and, I'll take my beating. The thing that's been a pleasant surprise and I didn't see it coming was what we got in Pittsburgh. And I think it's a really cool story. And of course they're playing as we record this, they're playing tonight. And there's always weird things that happen on short weeks on Thursday nights and maybe
division matchup.
Yeah.
Goofy weather, the whole thing.
Overall though, if you told me that Russell Wilson was going to take a visit with the Giants, was going to fly commercial to Pittsburgh, was going to sell his wares as a potential future Hall of Famer to these teams and say, who wants me? And that the Denver Broncos were going to pay 95% of his contract this season, no matter who he went to, because of what was already owed. And he would be the one leading the Pittsburgh Steelers into Thanksgiving as the 1 or 2 seed in the AFC. I would have told you you're crazy. So,
you could have told me I was crazy because I predicted all of those things before the season. It was one of my best ones. Where's freezing cold takes on that?
Come on,
maybe they should have smoking hot takes. Should be an alternate account of people just crushing preseason picks. Where's that account?
I met the guy.
LeBron's right. He's social media too negative. Where's the positive? Where's the positive stuff about the media? Come on, LeBron.
LeBron's out. LeBron's out on social media.
He does this every year. It's like when my wife gets mad at one of her friends. She's like, I'm not talking to her again. And then 6 weeks later, they're hanging out.
28 years on social media. Now LeBron is out.
Yeah, he's done.
Just too toxic. The guy's name was Fred Siegel. That's who does the freezing cold takes. And he reached out to me, came on Good Morning Football. He did a book. I'm like, I love this guy. And now he's trying to murder my career. It is everything that comes out.
Well, I think he's an equal opportunity murderer. is where he's fashioned himself. I got to say, the most shocking thing for me is Buffalo. I'm not shocked that they're, going to get to 10 wins because that was, if you were picking the Jets over them, I thought there was only going to be one AFC East playoff team. And I just thought the Jets had more stacked their way than Buffalo in this goofy year they're having. So Buffalo winning the AFC East and the Jets stinking, not that surprising to me. But Buffalo being good is surprising.
Yeah,
I don't really fully understand it. I don't know enough about like the mechanics of how you get a defense going that seems pretty flimsy. And yet when you watch them, like hats on the ball, sideline locked in, really well coached, really seems like they're across the board locked in, don't really have any weaknesses, which is crazy because they've had a lot of attrition, they've had injuries. And I just don't fully understand it. Like weird rookie receivers and young receivers or never did it before receivers, a hodgepodge running game with a bunch of running backs. I just don't fully get it.
They're so good. And what they've done is they've found ways to win games that they used to lose. So that Chiefs game, of course, they've beaten the Chiefs 3 different times in the regular season, but like there was that window where it's like, okay, here comes Kansas City. And after the 3rd and 1, that they go and I think they handed it to Ty Johnson for a 1-yard loss.
Yeah.
Bad play. You're like, all right, 4th and 2. Now remember last year in the playoffs, they trotted out the punt team and they ran a fake punt with DeMar Hamlin on 4th down. And that one was justifiable in that they couldn't stop Kansas City. Kansas City was going up and down the field. I think Mahomes scored in 5 of 6 possessions. Like, all right, we did fine. McDermott took a beating. He became a punching bag. Everyone made their jokes. They had the courage to say, you know what? Screw it. We're going for it again. And if we fail and come up short and we lose, like we'll deal with it.
Wait a second.
Monday
Do you
morning.
think that was courage though? Because sometimes I'm like, why are they doing this? But usually I'm saying, why are they doing this when your quarterback's like Jameis Winston, right? Or you have like a rookie quarterback. You're like, why are they doing this? They're not good.
They're up to.
I like it. I thought Romo sniffed it out. He's like, give the ball to Josh, let him decide the game. I was like, I actually agree. Let him decide the game.
And of course, it works out. And Josh is Superman, and that's an amazing. It's one of the all-time of that rivalry. That's a play that like goes on the list. If they'd kicked the field goal and they'd gone up 5, it reminds me a little bit of LaFleur against the Buccaneers in that NFC Championship game a few years back, where it's like we just got to stop them once and we get the ball back. They didn't want to do that, and that's with scar tissue from the year before of not wanting to do that and getting burned on it with that fake punt. So. McDermott,
but you know what? It was a risky non-risk because they had like a 5-game lead in the AFC East. It's like you lose that game, and it's like, all right, so maybe we're going to be a 3 seed instead of a 2 seed. It really wasn't a massive risk. Like if the Ravens did something like that this week when they're 7-4, and it's a must-win game against the Chargers, a little higher stakes on that one than I think Buffalo.
Yeah. I also think it was a gift for us in our world as a media, because if Kansas City wins that, then they have a 3-game lead over Buffalo plus the tiebreaker. And it's like, all right, we've already got our playoff pictures wide open now. Yeah. And Buffalo
Christmas Day is not going to suck.
Christmas Day games is like an AFC semifinals. You've got the Texans and the Ravens, and you've got the Steelers and the Chiefs. So I think it was a huge game. It was a huge win. And as much as Josh Allen downplayed it, and I know a lot of people on Monday morning, our guy Kyle Brandt was like, as a Bills guy, he's like, that was nothing. Like, stop. Like, don't make a big deal of this. It was a week 11 game. In 100 years, we'll forget about it. I felt the opposite. And traditionally, I'm the Chiefs guy. I pick the Chiefs to win every year, and I've made a lot of bones in the playoffs. And they're going on the road to Baltimore. They're going to win. They're going on the road to Buffalo last year. They're going to win. I thought that one. I felt like Buffalo was the better team. They were more dynamic. They felt like they had more deep threats. And gosh, I thought they were a better coach too. So I thought that was a big win for Buffalo.
Do you agree with my theory that they kept Kelsey in the garage for that game?
A Ferrari. I heard you talking about that with Sal.
It felt like let's not show all our cards in this game by then. The thing I was most concerned about with the Chiefs, and especially like listening to some pods and reading stuff over the next couple of days after the game, their tackles might not be good, right? And they figured out a way to kind of, scotch tape shit together. We've seen them do this a million times, but it seems like both tackles aren't really any good now. And I don't know if they can get something going from there, but from an offensive line standpoint, this feels like the shakiest they've been, right?
Yeah, and look, the last time their tackles gave us those questions was going to the Super Bowl against the Buccaneers, and they didn't have Fisher, they didn't have Schwartz, and we're like, all right. but they'll figure it out. And then the Buccaneers, obviously it manhandled them at the line of scrimmage, and then
By the way,
Mahomes lost
where's
Super
freezing
Bowl.
cold takes for that guy? We multiple
Right.
videos of us guaranteeing a Bucs Super Bowl win. I don't see
We
him
were
digging
great
those
on
up.
that.
Jesus.
Freddie Siegel. Anyway, the other part of it is like, they tried to get Worthy involved early. And I was like, it's a little bit of this being chippy, like, the Bills traded us this guy. We're gonna get Worthy involved. And then Worthy steps out of bounds when he has the whole field 1 foot, and you're like, that's not Chiefs football. Like, that doesn't go that way. So,
by the way, that was Patriots football is what it was. I've watched that all year. the wide open guy stepping out of bounds, terrible blocking, stupid strategies. That's Pat's football right now.
I get worried about the Chiefs with that because their defense has led the way for them. Their special teams has been awesome. Now Butker's down, and now the Spencer Schrader's going to have to make a couple big kicks. We'll see. But like, who's scaring you besides Mahomes? And you could say it's because, hey, when you need him, Kelsey's going to go 10 for 120 with 2 touchdowns. Maybe he hasn't been that guy. I know he had a couple big statistical games the last few weeks, but like, I don't think Kelsey's doing like he was doing it a couple of years ago. And then, you're throwing the ball to Noah Gray and Justin Watson and Juju, and Xavier Worthy is a nice deep threat, but I just don't know if this Chiefs team has enough firepower. And it sounds crazy to say that with an Andy Reid offense that has Patrick Mahomes at quarterback.
We said it last year in December. It was one of I think their bottom 3 explosive plays this year, which seems crazy for our Mahomes team. Like if you have Mahomes in fantasy, hasn't gone great, but we watched them reinvent themselves after that Christmas Eve game, whenever that was against the Raiders.
After.
Yeah, they immediately reinvent themselves. They're built, when the weather gets colder, that's going to be good for them too. I don't think it's going to be as good for some of the other teams. So I'm not panicking. And by the way, they almost won the game. And I do think if Worthy hadn't stepped out of bounds, they probably win the game. But on the other hand, you're relying on Worthy in these big spots.
Yeah.
It's going to be the same situation in January. But
who'd you have Super Bowl? You had Lions winning it all?
I ended up with Lions over Texans.
Okay.
And
still
then
alive.
Right before the season, I felt like the Chiefs had become undervalued, and I did a Lions Chiefs Super Bowl bet. That was like 30. All the Lions stuff is going to hit 1 seed, NFC North. Like, I think that's been the least surprising thing is the Lions they were who they thought it was the opposite of Danny Green. The Lions were who we thought they were.
Who they thought they were. I did Chiefs over Packers, and my Packers caveat
You're not done with that.
And I'm not done with that. And my Packers caveat was they're going to do it as a wild card because the Lions are going to be the 1 seed and going to run away with this thing. So that's all still in play. Detroit.
But one thing on the Packers, we're going to know this weekend. I think we're going to have a real feeling because they have a nice game against the Niners that they should win. We're going to talk about our $1 million picks later. That's if something good is going to happen to them in January, I need them to win the Niners game. And if they don't, I'm going to be probably tapping out.
Yeah. The Lions have been an interesting one because it's been like this locomotive, and they really will be one of the only teams in the league in 2024 where everyone's buddy and exchanging jerseys. Like, they'll snap your neck. They don't care. Like, I saw a stat. They scored more than 50 points 3 times from the year 1920 to the year 2023. They've already scored more than 50 points twice this year, and they have embarrassed teams. And they've also won close games, which is obviously the Vikings game with Jake Bates hitting those field goals, and then the comeback game against the Texans. So they've won in a variety of different ways.
The 5-pick game.
Yeah, where they overcame Goff's 5 interceptions and still had found a way. So like, I kind of like it that it's not just been 2007 Patriots or 2013 Broncos where they just rip every team apart. Like, they've been in games too, and they've won those as well.
And some adversity. It's not like everything went great this year.
Yeah,
they
Hutchinson
lost
going down
when he
is
was
huge.
the best defensive front 4 guy in the league. They lost their defensive captain 2 weeks ago, though. I like the David Long signing. I thought I was surprised he got waived. I liked him a couple years ago. Yeah. Jameson Williams got suspended. Goff had the 5-pick game. It hasn't been perfect, but they're almost like a college football team some games.
Yeah.
They're not just beating teams. They're like absolutely select. When you score 7 straight touchdowns to start a game, that's like you're on a different level at that point.
7 straight possessions. It's wild.
Well, have you
it's
seen
great.
the Super Bowl ads?
It's the first time ever in their history. Now I don't know how far back these gambling sites go, but I saw it was the first time ever that they are the Super Bowl favorite ever.
It has to be. When I mean, with
is.
Eric
I mean,
Kramer and Barry Sanders, I don't think they're the favorites. Yeah, they're plus 350 right now. The Chiefs are 5-1. The Bills are plus 650, and then the Eagles are sitting there at 8-1. Houston's at 17-1. It does feel a little hodgepodgey. Like you look at some of the Super Bowl matchups because they have all the different matchups, and it's like, let's say I still feel like the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl until they have actually lost the Super Bowl. It's still in my head. I'm always going to be afraid of that one for a Lions thing, but the Chiefs to beat the Lions is 14-1. But you look at some of these other dopey ones, like Chiefs to beat Arizona is 85-1. It's not insane that Arizona could make the Super. I'm not ruling out anyone. Is my point. As good as Detroit's looked, I'm not ruling out anyone. I'm just not.
Well, it's just that with Detroit, it's like, all right, let's say they have home field advantage. They won 2 playoff games there last year. They beat the Rams and they beat the Bucks. They did fine, and then they went on the road and lost. And it's like how it usually works is you don't, with the rare exception of maybe the Eagles a couple of years ago with Foles, or like the 99 Rams, where you just come out of literally nowhere and you're like, we're just going to win a Super Bowl. Usually you have to go through the progression of you go to the playoffs and you lose a tough one, and then you win another round.
Yeah.
They did it. So like it's all there for them. I just have thoughts of Dan Campbell, time management, game management, close game, late, going up against a McVay, going up against maybe a Kyle Shanahan, who everyone has their own issues with at the end of games, but like has been there also time and time again. It's that kind of stuff that it's an intangible and you can't do it until you do it. But just as so many teams have gotten to the precipice and had to lose a couple times before they got to that over the hump, maybe this is Detroit needing one more year. We'll see.
That was my case when I picked them, that there's like actual history. And I think there were 4 different instances of the team that got really close the year before, learned something, and then was able to apply it and either win the Super Bowl or come really close. And I think it happened like 5 times in the last.
Remember the Ravens
years.
Lost to you guys. Lee Evans dropped the pass, and then Billy Cundiff misses
Billy
the field goal.
Cundiff.
Yeah. And then the very next year, they're like, screw it. They go into Foxborough, they beat you guys, and then they go in and win the Super Bowl. Like that's a recent memory of a team that had to lose and then found a way to win,
Yeah. Well, now we've hit the portion of the podcast where I make my guests talk about Drake May for 60 seconds. This is unbelievable. This whole week, watching football Twitter, people like Orlovsky weighed in a couple times. All the football experts, like who's the guy Colin has? Cosell. He came in.
Cosell, film guy.
All the film guys are coming in like, you guys don't realize what Drake May's doing right now. You don't understand what's happening here. I've been going nuts. I can't. This is the most I've texted about the Pats since like Deflategate. This is the most excited I've been. F- coaching staff, no receivers, can't really block, running backs that can't do anything. So this is where I make my guests talk about Drake May. So talk about Drake May.
He's been unbelievable. And I talked to McVay Monday morning.
McVay was another one. Gosh,
McVay called him a stud in that press conference. And I hit up Sean just to talk about, their game, whatever. And then I also said, like, let's talk May. And he was just like, that guy. I mean, they got their guy. That guy's unbelievable. Like, what a performance. And the stat I got from my researcher at Good Morning Football, a great guy named Dante, says this was the second time in May's career that he threw the ball 40 times or more, completed at 70% of his passes, and only 2 other rookies in the history of the sport have done that. And it's Justin Herbert and it's Joe Burrow. And like Drake May's already done it twice. Like we're talking, and he does 95% of the offense, which you've noted.
Yeah.
Like it's just like, throw it on my shoulders. I'll figure it out.
And they're not even running the right plays for him. Like half the time you're like, what was that? Why did we do that? What are we doing?
He's doing it with talent that might not be starting on other NFL rosters, which is, I think, a kind thing to say. The offensive line leaves a lot to be desired. The coaching isn't exactly so.
The offensive line, like Cole Strange is coming back, and we're like, Cole Strange is coming back. Like we're at that part. He's back, baby. We have another guard.
It's coming. It's been really cool to see. In fact, this whole rookie class, and not to get off the Drake May conversation.
No, we're good. You gave me a minute. We can move on.
They've all had their moments. And like, as great as Drake May was in the early window on Sunday, I know everyone was watching Bills Chiefs. Like, Bo Nix was fucking amazing.
I know. He's gotten better every week for like 6 weeks.
And Moose Johnston was doing the game and he dropped this little nugget. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. Like, Moose is like, we spoke to Sean Payton in the production meeting, which we always talk about the value of the production meeting, whether you're there or you're not, you believe it or not. And he's like, and he said he liked Nix more than all these rookie quarterbacks in the draft. I'm like, that's crazy. He was the 6th one taken. Like,
wow.
Yet I believe it. It's the perfect match. There was no crazy ramp up period for him. He's 26 years old. He's played in 61 college games. He's seen it all. He's played at big programs, Auburn and Oregon. He's had failure. He's had success. He's done the Senior Bowl. Sean Payton does not want to work with a raw product, an unpolished guy that he's got to like frustrate himself with. He wants him to run his offense as like an avatar of himself. Like, here's what you're going to do and do it. Drake May's been doing it. There was a pass he had to Cortland Sutton where it was a play action pass, rolled right, pumped it twice, and then like dropped it in the bucket to Sutton over AJ Terrell. And I'm like, that's a 10-year vet play that he just did, and he's doing it. So I say all this because May's having moments. Nix is having moments. Of course, we did Jaden. Caleb's been good, and we don't know what we're going to get from Penix and McCarthy.
Caleb's been
Caleb's had moments. He's been sacked. He's been sacked.
He looked pretty good last
times. He's been sacked 44 times. It's the most since David Carr in his rookie year. Like, I can give Caleb a lot of mulligans on this season. I feel like he's been given a tough draw this whole way, whether it be the offensive line.
Wasn't tougher than Drake May.
Fair. And you saw what Gruden said. Gruden said he'd rather have Drake May than Caleb. I'm like, it's all over the map.
I loved it. Gruden we invited him to Superstar Drake May Island. We're handing out condos right now. Orlovsky has one.
But I do have to ask you, did we not? Okay, and I'm not trying to go and be viral for everyone else here, but did we not go down this road with Mac Jones, you and I, before? But this one feels a little different.
It's completely different.
Okay.
Mac Jones, it was like really good game manager. This guy can keep us going. He can make some throws. And this Drake May thing, he's doing it despite literally everybody else in every fashion. And I also think it seems like he's won the locker room over too already.
Oh, and how about he gets to the press conference 2 weeks ago and he's like, everyone put your phones down. I would just like to say, how about that defense? Let's clap it up. I'm like, this is a 22-year-old kid.
Yeah. No, he's figured out all those pieces. And you could tell like from the other coaches and the players that are going against him, some of the quotes. Whereas like with Mac, it was like, yeah, it's pretty good. You know, it's like, it was never like this. But Mac, I don't know what happened to Mac. I still feel like there's a sliding doors universe. And it really kind of started when Belichick benched him for a lot of that win Buffalo game. Mm-hmm. Remember that? His rookie year when it was like Monday 40-mile-an-hour wins?
Monday night.
It was kind of never the same, but there was he played a Colts, I think, on a Sunday night. And the Colts just defended him a certain way, and it was like it immediately broke him. They just like, they were like, throw over us.
I think I remember. I think it was a Saturday game. Maybe it was a Saturday night game on NFL Network. And like the Colts just, the defense and the special teams won the game for the Colts. And it was like, oh, that's him. I would add, you know, with Drake May, and you and I have talked about this. I'm not sure on this podcast or just you and I talking, like the Patriots, they love this guy in the building, and it goes from top to bottom, front office on. Like, I know the impression he made because I know a lot of the folks in that building. When he signed his rookie contract, he showed up, and all his brothers showed up, and his high school girlfriend showed up, and it was like this big deal. And like I got a text from someone in the building, like, that's such a Schrager stupid intangible thing that if he stinks, like, what was that? What was the point of him talking about it? Like, they loved it. They were like, this is what we want. We want someone who like wants to put his roots down here, and we can just build around this guy. And he is as loyal as it comes to family, to his friends, to his faith. It's all the right stuff on paper. And then now you see it on the field, and it's like, oh, these guys are going to rally around this guy for 10 years.
When Nate Tice was comparing him to Elway, that was like the comp, right? Because I couldn't quite get there with the Josh Allen because it was big enough. All right, we talked too much about him. I can't wait 10 years from now when he's bitter because 93-year-old Kraft is spending the least amount of money on the team out of the 32 owners. It's like, I don't know. Like right now, he's like in that young, loyal puppy stage that is just so great to.
I do like how this team has responded. You know, we go back and forth. I know you're the Patriots voice, but like Belichick and Lombardi and Patricia were feeling themselves a little bit after that soft comment, and they were joking and they were making their snide comments, and I felt it. I understand. They've won a couple games, and the players seem to be playing for Mayo, whether or not he's an X's and O's genius or they have ping pong in the locker room or what. this has been vacillating back and forth. There's obviously Kraft and Belichick lines here, and it's like, right. I don't know where I am on it, but
well, this was a better argument a week ago. The coaching last week was an F minus.
I know,
it was probably the worst coaching they've had all year. So
I said it straight up, it's not been good. But like,
they're a live dog this week, though. They're +7 in Miami, and I don't know. I just think week to week they're going to be really hard to predict because they easily could have beaten the Rams last week.
Dude, they were up on the Rams.
Yeah. By the way, let's talk about the Rams for a second because you're pretty wired in with them.
Yep.
Pretty lucky to beat the Pats, a team that made a ton of mistakes, that the coaching was abysmal. Then they're playing the Eagles this week. And all my instincts should be like, nah, I'm taking the Eagles. The Rams are kind of fraudulent. And yet I kind of like McVay against the Eagles. I don't know why. I don't know what it is, but him against Fangio, like, I love the way Stafford played last week. I thought he was awesome. Like, their receivers are back.
Yeah.
They can run the ball. Williams is really crafty.
Oh, dude.
There were times when it felt like the Pats had him behind the line and he would just figure out how to get 5 yards anyway. But and then their defensive line can really collapse the pocket and do some stuff. So I look at that. I think that's one of the hardest games to figure out. I don't know if I'm going to be putting in $1 million picks, but are the Rams a playoff team to you?
That loss to Miami on Monday Night Football was really a slap in the face to everyone who got on that bandwagon. That was maybe the worst loss any team's had this season. It's just surprising. Like, you had a couple wins in a row. You're back in this thing, and then here come this Dolphins team who just kicked their ass on national television in their building. Patriots, they should have won. They did win. It wasn't easy. You get back to this one. Now, what the testament to the Rams is that Aaron Donald retires, and the thought is their defense is going to go down. They drafted Verse. He's probably your defensive player of the year
all over the
rookie
place.
Side. It's either
every
him or
week,
Mitchell.
all over the place.
He's
the
awesome.
Are raving about him.
Braden Fisk's the other one, also from Florida State, second rounder. Their third round pick was Cam Kinchins, who's had 2 huge picks this season. The pick 6 against Seattle, and he had another interception that game, and then the game-winning interception against you guys last week. Then they got this guy Omar Spates, who's undrafted and wears number 48 and is all over the field and had the big 4th down stop against Seattle in overtime. Now, what I'm saying is, with all this, it's like you could do the F them picks and you can be super aggressive and you can go and you better nail the draft. And they have nailed the draft and they've found a way to recover from Aaron Donald retiring and no first round picks for the last 7 years. They've been really good with
on
these
that
guys.
Point. McVay said something interesting about how they didn't really scout May because they knew they had no chance at him. And I was wondering, like, is that an advantage when you either don't have first round picks at all? So there's people like you might as well just cross off 40 guys you're not going to get, or you're just concentrating on a certain portion of the draft versus like having to think about every round. I do wonder if that's kind of a weird advantage that you wouldn't want, but you kind of stumble into.
Sean had a really fun time this draft period. Now, quarterback was not going to happen. They were fine with quarterback with Stafford, but like this was his first round pick ever. So he was super excited. And I said on Good Morning Football, I'm like, there is no chance that in his first time making a first round pick, Sean McVay isn't taking an offensive player. Sure enough, they took Jared Verse. They took a defensive guy second round. Egg on my face. The guy that he loved, though, and I could say it now, and it's been reported, they loved Brock Bowers, the tight end out of Georgia. They loved him. And when he started slipping, McVay was getting the snappy fingers and like that. What can we do? What can we do? I believe they've made some phone calls to move up to get Bowers. It's a great what if because Brock Bowers is now having the best rookie tight end season ever on an irrelevant Raiders team.
10 to 13 targets a week on an awful team. Yeah.
And the fact is, though, it's what you're saying. They weren't going quarterback, but like McVay finally had a chance to look at blue chip talent, first round talent in a real way, not in a, well, there's a chance someone might slip or we might trade up. And he really enjoyed the process. So as much as an advantage as it might be to have a second round pick and not have to worry about the first round so you can look at deeper cut, like lower. It was cool for him to get that. And then the scouts, they were all in on Verse. Credit to Les Snead and his guys. Like if Verse falls to that far, like we've got to find a way to get a new cornerstone defensive player. And I think they found him.
Well, there was that one year when they didn't have Cole. They were looking at Cole Strange because they were like picking in the 3rd round and the Pats took him. And McVay's like, wait, Cole Strange just went in the 1st round. We were looking at him and
regrettable
I was like,
moment.
Oh my God, we might have fucked that pickup. McVay's stunned that this guy went in the top 30.
He came out the next day and was like, no. That's not what I was saying. What I was saying was we were actually. I'm like, I don't think they had
Bounce. Nobody's believed you on that one. But the flip side was he came all the way around on Drake May. So the Rams are plus 360 to make the playoffs. That seems tough. Seattle is plus 290 to make the playoffs. Arizona is minus 140 to make the playoffs. And then the most shocking one to me, which isn't that shocking, is the Niners plus money right now, plus 176. I want to talk about them really quick.
Yeah.
McCaffrey doesn't look like McCaffrey.
Nope, didn't look.
And it's the Niners are the classic. Oh, if I saw the sheet of paper, I'm like, whoa, they have a lot of good guys. But if you actually watch the games, like Ayuk's gone. Kittle missed last week, so he's hit the George Kittle red flag stage of his season, which happens every year. Debo's been hurt a bunch of times already. Jawan Jennings had to make big plays last week, but McCaffrey just didn't seem special to me last week. And I don't know if it's going to take some time to come back, or is this who he is? I don't think their offensive line's as good. I don't think their defense is as good. And I feel like they're still getting basically last year's value being treated that way versus what I'm watching.
I don't think it's just last year. I think it's the institutional knowledge that over the last 5 years, they've started off being like 3-4, 2-3, 4-4, and then they turn it on and they get to the playoffs and they're a really hard team to beat in the playoffs. I too am watching them though last week against Seattle, and Nick Bosa clearly hurt. It's a hip. It's an oblique. Clearly not himself. You don't have Eric Armstead out there anymore. You're now a couple of years removed from not having Buckner out there anymore. All of a sudden you look around, you're like, I don't even recognize this defense. It's Fred Warner doing everything he can, as he always does. It's an injured Bosa, and it's a bunch of younger guys on the back end. And it's like, I'm not scared of this defense like I used to be when it was DeMeco Ryans and Robert Saleh marching up and down the sidelines, puffing out their chest. To give up an 80-yard drive to Geno Smith after you held them most of the game, and then especially that final plays, like head scratching, not their way. What's killing them is they lost a terrible, terrible loss in Los Angeles where the receiver Bell drops a pass that would put the game away at 21-7. That's in a division. They lost to the Cardinals. That's in a division. They've now lost to the Seahawks in the division. You got to really dig yourself out of the hole, because I think their best way to the playoffs is going to be winning that division. Huge, massive game this weekend against the Packers. And to your point, they usually own the Packers, and Shanahan's had good numbers against LaFleur. I think he's 4-2 all time, but I go to the big games. I go to playoff games. And
yeah,
I think Raheem Mostert just scored another touchdown from the NFC Championship game back in 2020. I remember a couple of years ago on a Saturday night, Rodgers was public enemy number one with the COVID stuff, and everyone was taking shots at him, and he comes in as the 1 seed, and the Niners come in with Trent Williams in a boombox out of the locker room, and they beat them in Lambeau and shocked the 1 seed on a Saturday night. And it's like, the Niners just have their number. I don't know if it's that same Niners team. The faces might be the same. The coach might still be the same. But like, do I have any confidence that 49ers squad that I've seen the last few weeks limp to victories and just get by in their wins and then lose strange games they never lose is going to come in and just push around the Packers? I don't.
One more piece. Packers almost beat them in that playoff game when it was a healthier Niners team.
Last year?
Probably should have won.
Yeah. Bad kicking, huh?
Little revenge game for them in this one. And I'm with you. I think the Packers, I think the ceiling of the team versus what we've seen, I still believe in this ceiling. And I don't think they've played that well. And I think they've had some weird stuff happen, really starting with that crazy Brazil game.
It's a weird way to start the season.
And they got super lucky last week against the Bears. They're also playing. One thing that worries me about that game for them is they're playing on Thursday night too. They're playing the Dolphins, right? So you have this huge game at home against the Niners, but you also know that other game is kind of lingering.
It's Thanksgiving evening,
Thanksgiving night.
Yeah,
and I always wonder, like the game before the game. The good news is they're playing the Dolphins that game. Pretty mediocre Thanksgiving.
Dolphins have won a couple games in a row. No,
I know. Yeah, but now they got Drake May coming to Miami. There's also some weird weather stuff this week too.
There's snow in Green Bay. Jordan Love leads the league in interceptions. Like, you're not wrong. Like, they don't look crisp. And then before the season,
they've had some like Dobbs got suspended for a game. Like, they've looked a little gamey at times, right?
And like, I don't know if this is a positive or negative. Now, in the early 2000s, the Patriots had this where it was like you didn't really have a true number one wide receiver, and LaFleur said that before the season. Like I look at all those guys number ones, but every week it's like Jaden Reed's week, then it's Dobbs' week, and last week Watson went nuts. So I kind of like that.
There was a Tucker Kraft week.
Oh, Tucker Kraft, he killed the Rams, and then the next week had 2 touchdowns.
It does nothing anymore.
It's okay. It's all right. He'll find us saying Josh Jacobs obviously is a weapon, and like we could just list names, but to me, they haven't even come close to gelling on offense yet, and they're still 7-3, and they're perfectly where you want to be. Like, let the Lions get all the headlines. Let the Vikings be sitting there with a tiebreaker over that. Like, let that be there, and then stretch run. Here comes the come running team, and the come running team might very well be the Packers, who got their shit together at the right time.
Right. Maybe as a 5 seed, maybe as a 6 seed. We're aligned on this one. There's a scenario in my head this weekend where I'm trying to think of the narratives on Monday morning as you're staring at Kyle.
Yeah.
Where it's like, Packers, whoa, do we believe this? Niners, oh no, like they're not going to make the playoffs. Holy shit. And then there's this sneaky Lions game. And I'm going to, full disclosure, I'm putting the Lions in a tease. But it does have like,
does it scare you?
It's a little sneaky. It's a little sneaky because Richardson, I thought, played pretty well last week. And I thought in general, the Colts played pretty well. And, everyone's so high in the Lions right now coming off this giant win. And I think they can run the ball over them. I'm not worried about it. But I was just wondering, like, could this be
one of these weeks?
Now? Yeah, we're like, hey, Packers only a game back.
Totally. And like one of these weeks, the Lions are going to have that game. But gosh, I thought the Titans might have gotten, because Titans came in with the number 1 defense. They lit them up. I thought the Jaguars maybe playing for Doug Peterson's job with all that stuff beforehand. No.
Oh, I'm glad you brought him up. Because that was the thing I was the most wrong about this season was
I was too.
Like the Jets, I walked in with eyes wide open, fully knowing it was 50-50. I really believed in the Jags as an AFC playoff team.
So did I.
And for me, it came down to them versus Denver for that last spot. And I couldn't get there with Denver because of the defense. Ironically, their defense statistically has been awesome.
Great.
If you looked at it before the season, it's like, I don't see it. What's in here? And I thought Jacksonville, and meanwhile, it's been the opposite. They're one of the 5 worst teams in the league. Doug's doing the dead man walking. They didn't even fire him after a 52-6 loss.
They still might. Like, we're doing this on Thursday. They've got bye week. Like, I don't know how that's going to go down.
This is going up fast. So maybe if this happens Thursday night, the pot of water would be up. So you think it's still in play?
So I think it's still in play. I think after that loss on Sunday and all the reports that aren't coming from nobody that he was on, he's on the death watch anyway. Like they have a bye week. Who knows what the Cons have going on this week? They might be wrestling or something else going on that they wanted to deal with in the first part of the week. But like, I certainly don't think I would be sleeping great if I'm Doug Peterson.
No, he knows.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Like he knows what's going on. Yeah.
He's got a statue. Are there any other coaching situations we should just be monitoring? Maybe guys not about to get fired, but situations that seem a little rockier than maybe it seems to the outside. Like, are we cool with Cleveland these days? What's going on there?
It's fine in Cleveland. 2-time coach of the year. And I know the relationship he has with ownership, and there's like full trust in him. So I think he's fine. There was a erroneous report that Dable was on the hot seat. I don't think that's true. I think Dable's set in New York.
Bears? Do we watch the Bears the next couple weeks, or is that already a wrap?
We watch the Bears. We see how they respond. Anytime you fire a coordinator and things don't get better, the next person is not the other coordinator. Like that's the stuff that we look at there.
Should I start doing that? Should I start firing inner circle people when I don't like what's going on to deflect blame? Does this work in the outside world?
Not your fault.
I don't know what's going on over there.
That's it. This podcast is
such a weird strategy.
I know.
Yeah, I've had to change my offensive coordinator. You're the head coach.
And the sick part about that was Thomas Brown called a really nice game for the Bears last week, and Caleb looked good, and energy was hot, and it's all for naught. Like they still lost.
But think about one of the things, like in the stories and the dialogue after. It's like Thomas Brown simplified it for Caleb. Wanted to get rid of the ball fast. He got rid of the ball within 3 seconds. It's like, why didn't you do that 3 weeks ago? You could have asked me. Just cold called me. I would have told you he was holding on the ball too long. Like, we needed a new offensive coordinator to figure that out.
I'm a McVay guy, obviously. Thomas worked for McVay for many years over there in LA. And before that was a University of Georgia running back. And before that, played high school football against McVay. So like McVay's been singing about this guy for a decade. So he goes and gets this job at Carolina, a big promotion, flames out horribly. Everyone gets fired. And he goes to Chicago, and it's like he finally gets a chance to be an offensive coordinator. And like he was high energy. He was, let's go. And I'm wondering, I'm like, Shane Waldron, also respected guy, like, and Matt Eberflus, those are not like high energy, like those are not big vocal guys. Meanwhile, you look at the booth and Thomas Brown is like super into it. He's pumping his fist. And I'm like, as stupid as that sounds, like sometimes the young quarterback needs that, just a little bit of juice. Like, let's go. So I'm curious to see how the rest of the season plays out for him.
That's like what you did for me with
guys.
$1 million picks that year when I was in a slump and you came in. You had just had a ton of energy.
Mid-season edition, baby. Let's go.
Well, Joe Brady seems like he's emerged as a possible head coaching dude. Yeah. You have the Chargers defensive coordinator.
Minter.
He's in the mix for stuff. You have Belichick. You have Vrabel. You have Ben Johnson, who I think just wants to sit at the bar in a cocktail dress and have people buy him drinks. I'm not sure he actually ever wants to be a head coaching job.
Not even. Like 2 years ago, he was a Carolina guy, and Tepper was like in on Ben Johnson. Like he didn't even take the interview. He's like, I'm good. Last year, I have it on pretty good sources. He was Washington's guy. Yeah. They get on a private jet to Detroit to go meet with him again. And they find out while they're on a private jet that he's withdrawn his name from the interview process and he's going to stay in Detroit. Like, I don't even know if he wants to be a head coach. And I don't think he loves the idea that he's looked at as this guy who flirts. He doesn't even flirt. He's like, I'm good. So I would imagine this is the year, but he could be picky here. I don't think he needs to take any job.
This is the year, and I doubled down on it with my future picks before the year, but I was just like, I'm defaulting to good coaching. Like Sean Payton, over. Jim Harbaugh. I know it doesn't make sense, but I just feel like he's getting to 9 wins and maybe making the playoffs.
I had him both in the playoffs this year. I'm with you.
Next year already, I can just tell you, like Belichick and Vrabel taking over whoever, I'm just going to be like, I'm in on those guys.
Why are you so convinced Belichick's getting a job?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not. I'm convinced he wants a job.
If he didn't get one this time around, and Atlanta obviously went down the road with him, why after a year will he suddenly be in demand?
Great question. Because especially coming off of not a great Pats year, I think Kraft was definitely poisoning the well a little bit. I think he had a reputation as a curmudgeon and as a control freak. And I think the two jobs that made the most sense for Atlanta and Washington. Atlanta hired Raheem, who's, was a really, really, really good defensive coordinator who was going to get another job. Like, it wasn't like they hired a schmuck. In Washington, Dan Quinn, like, it seems like that was the right hire. Like,
right guy for them.
Great energy, defense, like, it's worked out. I don't really know if there's another job. Like Tepper wasn't going to hire him in Carolina.
No.
This year, Jacksonville and Vegas seem like the two spots that.
Okay, so let's go down to
Belichick,
Vegas.
you're bringing his whole infrastructure. He's going to be in charge of everything, and you're just handing the thing over to him. Those seem to be the two franchises that just need someone like that. So
let's go down the Vegas line. Brady hires Brady's first big opportunity. Brady's hiring his Belichick, his old head coach, and they're going to bring in Josh McDaniels and Mick Lombardi and the whole gang from like they did that a couple years ago. Like that was their coaching staff. They went the New England route.
Like the only thing I would push back on is, are we sure Brady's going to be that involved?
Good point. I don't know.
You could tell me either. You could tell me he's going to be super involved.
I would imagine.
Could tell me he just got a deal on a 10% NFL team and he's just kind of.
So who does this benefit more? Brady or the Raiders to have Brady as a Raiders minority owner? I would think the Raiders would say we would love his insights and have him weigh in on decision making when it comes to football. I would say Brady
because he got an unbelievable deal apparently in the team. He got some
legitimate owner,
like half price. Like the NFL owners were pissed about it. Jacksonville needs. I think Vrabel, because he's younger than Belichick, should be a better candidate than Belichick. As much as I love Belichick, he's hitting his mid-70s.
Yeah,
but I do think that's been a lot of this media stuff has been a rehab tour of, I do have a personality.
So interesting
I
you say
can
that.
Play the game.
Surrounds himself with a Chris Long, who's a super likable guy on television, a Chad Johnson on television, and he's playing along with those guys. Then he's on with the Mannings, and he's great. And it's
he's doing McAfee, like he's checking all the boxes.
Totally. And look, if you're talking about who do you want to sit down with and talk ball with, or who's going to be the best X's and O's guy in the history of the sport, it might be him. I know these owners. I'm trying to think. Like, I think Shad Khan is your best bet of like who's going to hand things over to Belichick, and
it's somebody who has a whole bunch of other stuff going and doesn't want to manage it day to day.
You deal.
It's
right?
like you take it, you go. Which is, I think, what he thought he was going to have with Trent Baalke, right? And that hasn't worked out.
Yeah, and he thought he had that with Urban Meyer, and that didn't work out.
I think Belichick's going to go to Jacksonville, and I think Vrabel will get a really good job. I can't imagine he's not going to be a head coach next year. That's crazy to me.
So he's been talked about, obviously, a lot, and a lot of people thought he got a raw deal in Tennessee, which is fair. He's won a lot without a real true number one quarterback. Tannehill was solid for a couple of years. Think about Vrabel. He's in Cleveland right now consulting, but that's almost like, hey, just let me stay with the team. Let me help out where I can. But you can't pin any of Cleveland's bad season to like, well, look, Vrabel had a bad year. Again, though, Vrabel, like, former Patriot, all that. Like, is Vrabel the Jets guy? I don't know if that's a great fit in New York. I don't know if he wants to go there. I'm just trying to do mix and matching about what's going to be available. And I look at some of the places that are going to have openings. I think Bears might be available. I think Cowboys is going to be available. I think Jets is going to be available. Would you want the Cowboys job? It's tough. It's tough because he's going to be involved.
3 giant contracts. It's basically like you're taking over the 76ers.
And the owner historically has been very involved. They haven't had a real voice of like pushback or resistance since Parcells. I mean, I don't think Wade Phillips was that guy. It wasn't Garrett and it wasn't McCarthy. Those guys have been great football coaches in their own right and when they had to be, but like they're not guys who are going to scream at the owner.
Yeah.
I think
last year
Vrabel would stand his ground.
Last year the Chargers was the best job.
100%.
You get Herbert. You have a team that underachieved because of the coaching situation. You have actual talent in place. It was all lined up for somebody to come in. Jacksonville to me is a pretty good job.
You still believe in Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah, if you're walking into it going, I think Lawrence can be a guy. I think he could be on somewhere in the Herbert May vicinity. They did this wrong, this wrong, and this wrong. We can build him back up. And you're probably watching every pass and play that he's done over the last 4 years, trying to decide if this was his fault or if this was the infrastructure. But at least, like, you go to the Giants, who am I getting? Tommy DeVito? Like, you go to Vegas,
you're getting a draft
no
pick.
chance
Both
of
those guys, draft picks. Yeah. That's what you're getting.
Or Chicago would be the other one where you're walking in with Caleb. You have draft capital. You have a city that gives a shit.
That's kind of what Canales stepped into in Carolina. If you get like a Caleb that just had a scarring rookie season, now how do I build him back up? Like Bryce Young was destroyed last year. How do I build him back up? That's a challenge in itself.
Work in progress.
I would quickly give you a name, and obviously I say this and a lot of people roll their eyes because he was a head coach before, but like depending on how the second half of the season goes in Washington, I think Kingsbury is going to be a name to watch because of what he did with Jaden out of the gates. And he's got head coaching experience. It's not for everybody. And he has faded in the second half of every place he's ever coached, whether it was Texas Tech or Arizona or even USC last year. But I would keep an eye on Kingsbury as a sneaky candidate for a few of these places just because of his ability with these young quarterbacks. And that's what you're drafting. And I do think, he
was bad in Arizona. I don't know how much of it was his fault, but it didn't go well.
Yeah.
With that said, he's been amazing for Daniels. And if you feel like it's a quarterback match, maybe. The thing is, you have a 25% chance of hitting it with the coach. We're just watching it. There's 8 or 9 guys, and then there's everybody else.
Totally.
That's what happens. Like, would you want the New Orleans job? The shocking thing to me is how many jobs I wouldn't want that are available. Yeah. It's like, oh, cool. I get to take over the Panthers. If that became available, no, thank you. Oh, the Saints. I get the Saints job.
You're underestimating the egos, the careers, and what it means to be one of the 32. And a lot of these guys know going in sometimes.
I get it, but not if you're Ben Johnson, though. And every year you have your pick. Like, it's like, oh, cool, I get to coach Derek Carr. I get Aiden O'Connell for a whole year. Oh,
Yeah. Sean Payton tells this story about like he got interviewed by the Raiders in 03 maybe, and he was the offensive coordinator of the Cowboys, and Al Davis made the pitch, and then the Cowboys came back and said, we'll pay you as much as they're paying you to stay as offensive coordinator. And he does. And then the next year he visited New Orleans and he was like, there were still tarps on the homes from Katrina. And like, we were embarrassed to invite free agents in because if they even saw this place, they would never choose to sign. He's like, we had to offer twice as much money to assistant coaches just to even consider this place. He's like, it's not like that, but when you go into these teams that are so much behind the eight ball, like it is a real hard sell to like a top coach, which is one of the reasons why you don't get some of the premier coordinators or the hot names going to these franchises. And everyone's like, all the fans are like, well, let's just hire that guy. No. A lot of times it's the coordinator has the choice or the hot name has the choice. And it's like, I'm not going to go step into that. I want to go to the place that's the most desirable.
Well, it's funny the way we laid that out. Maybe Vegas is a more desirable job because you come and you're like, hey, Vegas, no state tax. It's hopping city right now. Doing great. We have the Aces.
NBA's coming.
We got a baseball team coming. NBA's coming. Like shit's going down.
We got the NBA Cup and they do
home
the cool
of the
court.
UFC, NBA Cup. Like shit's happening.
Are you going to go to the NBA Cup again this year or no?
I'm on the fence. The semifinal game, there's the 2 in a row games on a Saturday. It seems kind of fun. But,
it does. I will be I'm doing a double dip this weekend. I'll be in LA. I'm going to go to Nuggets Lakers on Saturday.
Hope
and then I'm going to go
plays.
I know, I'd like to see him. Then I'm going to go to Eagles Rams the next night. And then I was thinking about extending the trip one more day because you have Ravens Chargers. So pretty good LA sports weekend here.
That really is. Well, let's leave on that because we're hitting that $1 million picks. Ravens Chargers. Chargers sneak one out last week.
Ooh.
It was a sneaker.
Slayed some ghosts.
Ravens could be 7-5 if they lose this game. The Ravens are favored by 3. And I've liked the Chargers all year. But something about the Ravens on turf coming off a loss is scary to me. What's your take on this game?
I don't know, man. Chargers are really good. And last week, it was obviously all written to just charger it up. And they found a way to somehow put their foot down and not let that happen again. Now, of course, the kicker from the Bengals misses that kick and it's okay. But it was all going the way it always goes for the Chargers after being up 27-6. And they found a way to hold on. And Herbert had to leave a drive at the end. Yeah. And he did.
That was good.
And at the end, it's like, Ladd McConkey has no demons and no ghosts from, previous years. And J.K. Dobbins doesn't know any of that stuff. And they've got guys on defense who weren't a part of those teams. Like, new coach, new feel. Like, I could see them beating up on the Ravens this weekend. The Ravens last week, they finally get a good effort from their defense. They finally get this performance where they keep a team under 20. And on the flip side, they only run the ball with Derrick Henry 13 times. They missed 2 Justin Tucker field goals. They look discombobulated after the timeout and the 2-point conversion. There's penalties all over the place. Like, I don't feel great about this Ravens team. I didn't feel great when they won against the Bengals on a Thursday night and they gave up 35 points and 500 yards passing. Like, I don't know. I know the Ravens are favored and this game's on the road for some reason. I could see the Chargers winning in this game 100%.
It's a must watcher. That one's great. Packers Niners is going to be great. Some good ones. Rams Eagles will be fun. We have a couple good ones. I think Dolphins Pats could be really fun too.
I heard you and Sal joking about, did you know that the Buffalo fans jumped through tables? Where do you stand on the Harbaugh brothers going up against each other in a game? Are you good on that storyline or is it not enough?
Is that what's happening?
Yeah, they actually, so one of the team's head coaches.
They're going against each other? I didn't see that. Nobody's talked about that all week.
It's actually kind of interesting because one of them is last name Harbaugh and the other one's last name is Harbaugh. And their dad actually coached too for Western Kentucky for many years.
Same dad.
Same guy.
How many times did they coach against each other when Harbaugh was on the Niners?
Twice. They did a Thanksgiving game and then they did the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the Super Bowl.
And John won both times.
I still don't understand how the Niners lost that Super Bowl. I went to that game. One of the weirder sporting events I've ever. I'm sure you were there too. After I was there. Long blackout. The whole thing was.
Where did you sit? Because maybe I'm just a neurotic New Yorker here, but the lights go out and everyone thinks this is hilarious. I was freaking out. I'm like, what's going on? Like, where were you when it went down? I was in the press box, which is not easy to get down from the top of the Superdome.
I was in a suite with the one and only Nathan Hubbard.
Yep.
And the lights went out, and the first thought is like, is something horrible happening? Then the second thought is, what if the lights don't come back on? What happens to the Super Bowl? Then it was super disjointed, but the whole game was disjointed. And then all of a sudden they're on the 5-yard line, first down. And the pace was off, and it was really weird to watch in person.
It was.
I haven't been to like a million NFL games because I love watching them on TV, but that was, I think, the weirdest one I've been to in person.
Frank Gore runs the ball down to the 5-yard line. Kaepernick throws, I think, 3 passes to Michael Crabtree. One of them maybe to Randy Moss, of all people, who was on that team, out of the end zone. And that's how it ends. It's a crazy, crazy Super Bowl that's forgotten in the lore because of the blackout, but it came down to the final minutes. And like, that's another one that Niners fans add to like, there's a whole version of the beleaguered Jets, Browns fan, and no one's crying for Niners fans. They've got all those Super Bowl rings, but like they have had some devastating playoff losses over the last 2 decades.
Yeah, you're right. You don't think of them as the tortured fan base because they've been in it every year, but what was the last one? 95?
Yeah, well,
Steve Young?
It was Steve Young and the monkey off his back with Gary Plummer. Yeah, that was the last time they won a Super Bowl, right? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Montana won 4 and Steve Young won 1.
Drought on par of the New York playoff football drought.
13 years for the Jets.
And then when was the last Giants playoff one? Was it the Super Bowl?
No, a couple of years ago, they beat the Vikings. They beat Kirk Cousins.
That's right. The Daniel Jones game. I bet on that game. Yeah,
we didn't talk about the Giants decision all year.
There's nothing to talk about.
All year, Drew Lock's number 2. DeVito gets the call.
Well, so they're just trying to save money, right? It's just per game.
No, DeVito brings a spark, baby. Let's go.
Spark for what? They should want to lose every game. If I were them, I would play Daniel Jones every game.
There's
like, the weird thing is the draft's goofy because the top 2 guys, it seems like, are cornerbacks, right? If you say Travis Hunter is a cornerback, who can play receiver sometimes. And then there's not a quarterback in the top 8.
Wow.
The 2 left tackles have fallen out.
Just get ready for the Shedeur Sanders hype train, my friend. It's coming. It's coming. It'll be real. It'll be real.
That's where I'll be getting off that train.
You're not a fan?
No, I like them. It's just, we do this every year with the draft where we're settling with like, these are definitely the 5, 6, 7 best guys. And then as we get closer to April, everybody starts talking them into these quarterbacks. Yeah. It starts rising up. All right. $1 million picks week 12. I'm not happy with how we did last week, considering we love the Broncos and Chargers. Both of those hit. We really like the Colts and the Jets and somehow did the wrong bet. We did a bet with the Colts plus 3.5 with Richardson's rushing. And then he had the ball a ton rushing and somehow didn't hit the 38.5. And then we had the Chiefs in a tease, Chiefs up to +8 and Chiefs plus 3.5, another tease. And that game was a 1-score game and they didn't win. I have no regrets about putting the Chiefs in a tease.
No, you can't.
I do regret listening to you on the Browns.
That was a mistake.
Drunk house.
That was a mistake.
We don't want to talk about it. We're moving on. So week 12, there's 3 games I like and a parlay I like. Which one do you want to hit first, the parlay or the 3 games?
Let's save the parlay for last. Parlay is like dessert, right? It's like the nice sundae at the end because we're taking all these nice parts and putting them together.
All right, so Schrager and I in part 1 of the podcast talked about this Packers-Niners game. Packers are -1.5 at home. They almost beat the Niners last year in the playoffs and really could have. They've been a team that we all kind of like from a talent standpoint that has not really totally put it together again. But what we have always seen perennially with the NFL, right around Thanksgiving time, somebody starts making a jump. And some people would think that's going to be the Niners, and I just don't see it. I think it's been a year from hell. I didn't like the way McCaffrey looked last week at all. Kittle's banged up. Their defense isn't the same. And from a narrative standpoint, House, I could see this being a game where the Packers take care of business. We officially realize it's not the Niners' year, and we start thinking about this Packers team as a possible, all right, maybe they'll give the Lions a good game in the playoffs game. What don't you like about that narrative theory?
That the Packers don't look like a team to me that can take care of business. They are messing around, playing around, effing around with their food every week. Yeah. And I think it is because Jordan Love is not 100% healthy. We haven't had that real Jordan Love breakout game that became the hallmark of that Packers team the second half of last season, that also coincided with Aaron Jones ripping off a bunch of 100-yard. So they have the back. It is Jacobs, but we haven't seen sort of that two-headed monster. They get vertical with Jordan Love because he's got all the time to get to those receivers. The receivers, that core is still great. The receiving core is still great. And Jacobs will get his yards sometimes in certain circumstances, but we haven't really seen the full rev.
Well, can I give you the game where we did see it? Because it was a while ago.
Let's hear it.
Week 6, Arizona. Love threw 4 TDs. They beat Arizona 34-13. We chalked it up to it's Arizona. Arizona's been really good since that game.
Since then, yeah.
And now I look back to that week 6 and I think, that was a pretty good win. Because then after that, they play Houston. They win by 2. They play at Jacksonville. They win by 3. Kind of a stupid game.
Live.
They play home against Detroit. They lose by 10. But Detroit's the best team in the league.
Much worse than that.
And then they play last week against Chicago, and it was a play with your food game against a team that had a new offensive coordinator. And I thought the Bears played really well in that game, but they did get it done at the end. So I guess my theory is they're a little undervalued. I think San Francisco is still a little overvalued because I think people keep waiting for the real San Francisco to show up, and I'm not sure it's there. And maybe this is the week. I think they should be favored by 2.5 or 3. So I feel like I'm getting like a free point or 1.5.
So the crazy thing is the line was 2.5 earlier this week, but I think that was a hedge because the reports of Purdy was doing limited practice and he's got a sore shoulder. And there was some speculation about whether or not he was going to play in this game. The fact that it's moved down to 1.5 seems like some money's come in on the Niners that suggests that Purdy's gonna play, and if that's the case,
injured George Kittle, who said he's gonna try to play.
Yeah,
well, that makes me nervous.
What do we know? What do we think about Bosa?
Juwan Jennings, Bosa a little compromised.
Well, Bosa, I mean, it seems like it might be game time decision whether he plays or not.
And then in Lambeau against a team that feels like they should have beaten them last year and has something to prove. I like the spot for the Packers. I'm in on this bet.
I'm gonna let you do it. We're not going to have a disagreement.
You're afraid, you're still like a little afraid of the Niners.
Yeah, because they have all that talent. We haven't seen McCaffrey yet, and
But that's my point. Is I don't think McCaffrey's healthy.
He may not be.
So it's like you saying we haven't seen him beat yet. It's like I don't know if we're seeing him beat for a while. Like I don't think. To me, McCaffrey doesn't look like McCaffrey yet.
I think that's kind of fair. I'm worried about seeing him this week.
Packers -1.5. I'm marking that down. Cardinals, Seahawks. Cardinals are getting 1.5 in Seattle. There's some weather stuff maybe with this game that makes me a little nervous with Kyler Murray and bad weather. In general, the Seahawks going from seeming like their season was over last week. They get the huge drive from Geno against the Niners, which was another bad sign with the Niners that they gave up that long Geno drive. And now they're playing the Cardinals at home this week, and they have a chance to really reinsert themselves in this race. We have Seattle bets from before the season. I think I might even have them to win the NFC West, which could be still alive if they win this game. I'm a Cardinals believer. I think they're good. They really won me over the last few weeks. And the thing I like about this house is you have Seattle's defense 27th against the run, and Arizona with this physical pounding running game they have with James Conner. I just feel like they can run the ball. And even if you're going to like Seattle in this game, then maybe it's an Arizona first bet, Seattle for the game, like plus 800 type thing. But I think Arizona can beat them. I think this is another narrative game to me where we come out of it and go, Arizona, I think they're for real. At the same time, Seattle's ability to throw the ball and run the ball and come from behind, which they did last week, scares me a little. So where do you stand?
It's a 50-50 game. We talked about this on East Coast Bias. Raheem Palmer and I were heads up. I preferred Arizona, and the dream is on Seattle. My issue with Seattle is that is the least trustworthy offensive line in football. Each of the times that I've tried to come up with a basis for Seattle, taking advantage of somebody, it's born out of the idea that they can establish the run, and they sometimes can and sometimes can't, and most of the time can't. Part of the reason to prefer Seattle would be the return of DK Metcalf. And really, I mean, Smith and Jigba has been incredible, both from a fantasy perspective, but most importantly, from a chemistry perspective with Geno. So the question for Arizona is, can they put pressure on Geno? Because the splits are crazy with Geno when he has time. And that really was the thing that Seattle was able to take advantage of down the stretch against the Niners. No Bosa. And Geno, got really comfortable with the lanes he could run in and the lanes he could see to throw the ball in. I don't really have a strong feel. I express a preference for Arizona, but I certainly could see Seattle. Dream said that in his model, these teams are dead even. So
interesting.
It really does feel like a 50-50 game.
I just want to point out Seattle's lost 5 of their last 7.
Sure.
And came within one San Francisco stop, but that being 6 of 7.
Yep.
I'm happy to be wrong on this, and if so, lose some money. But I like this Arizona team. I think they know who they are, and I think they can run the ball, and I think they'll be able to pressure Geno and make a couple mistakes. And I just think they're better.
It's just the defense for Arizona. That's all.
Right.
They've been on the right side of like variance, a bunch of like games that they've won by 1 or 2 points.
21st pass defense, and Seattle is second with the pass. And as you mentioned, Smith and Jigba has been a revelation the last few weeks. He was awesome in that last game. Like they were going over and over again. I'm going to mark the Cardinals down.
That's fine.
Ravens, Chargers. My first instinct was I really like the Chargers. And the more I stared at it, I keep coming back to this question. Are the Ravens really going to go 7-5? That's going to be their record after week 12. They'd be 7-5.
I don't want to do this because we had a conversation at the very beginning of the season. We were looking at teams after week 1 and said, here's the list of teams. We were looking for there were some giant lines out there. And we were like, are the Ravens really going to go 0-2? Are the Ravens going to lose to the Raiders?
Yeah.
And the mother
and they did it.
They did it. Those sons of bitches. So I don't want that to be the rationale.
Well, can I give you this? They have 4 losses. They lost to Kansas City on the Isaiah Likely stepped on 6 inches of the line game. They blew that Vegas game where they're up 10 in the fourth quarter. That's the weirdest result of the year. I would put it against any other game. They dropped the game-winning interception in Cleveland. The fucking guy dropped it. And Jameis ends up going down and getting it. But he just threw them an interception. They didn't catch it. And the Pittsburgh game was stupid. I mean, I loved it because I had Pittsburgh, but missed multiple field goals. It was just one of those games.
It's what happens. That's what happens in those games.
And then I look at the Chargers, who I think are a really good team. For as a home team, I get it. I had them last week, but I feel like the Ravens can just run on them and move the ball. And you think about how easily Burrow was able to just move the ball in the second half against the Chargers. Why wouldn't Baltimore be able to do that?
That's the thing to me. So I don't think the Chargers are a really good team. I think they are.
Maybe really, I should have said a really good surprise team.
Exactly. Perfect way to put it, because it is incredible. They tried their goddamnest to Charger the F out of that game.
Right.
But Harbaugh and then whatever's going on inside the locker room with those guys, they just did enough to not Charger the outcome of that game. But I thought that what we saw in the second half when Cincinnati, it really was a game where like whoever has the ball at the end of this game is going to win this effing game. And they could not, under any circumstances, slow down that Cincinnati offense, slow down Joe Burrow. And I really think that which one's the younger? Which is
I thought Jim
Chargers
was older.
coach.
Jim's older, I think.
And Jim is the Charger coach, right?
Yeah. Oh my God, House. Really?
No, I think John's older. That's why you're confusing me. I'm pretty sure John's older.
I'm confusing you. You thought Jim Harbaugh was maybe not the Chargers coach.
That was
John Harbaugh, older brother.
I think it's John.
John Harbaugh's older. Good call.
There we go. He tried to make fun of me because I don't know which one is which. Big brother, little brother. I like it. It's a rematch of the Super Bowl. Big brother had his way.
So you're saying if you coached against either of your black sheep brothers,
oh my God,
it's a guaranteed win? Just Tim back house with any money line?
Not only that, but I would be looking for an opportunity to put my nuts on their forehead. Absolutely, positively. There'd be no doubt. These nuts.
We might have to have both of the House brothers on at some point, just so people know they exist.
I can assure you they're available.
Wait, would Dick House ever come on, or would we have to put him on a 7-second delay?
Definitely with delay. Yes, for sure.
Well, Baltimore.
I love the Ravens. I mean, we can cut to the chase.
Yeah, because they have the 30-second pass defense. But what we saw from the Chargers last week, the receivers,
man,
they're okay. They're really they're eking out the most they can get out of it. But there's still some moments where like, oh yeah, that's right. You're Josh Palmer.
And oh yeah, that's right. You're Justin Herbert. Remember? Like for a quarter and a half? Like, yeah, right. We know who you are, buddy. We know all. You've got the great.
Oh, wow.
I don't want to
make the nerds mad now. Don't make the nerds mad.
I actually like him. I think he's terrific, and all the reports like he's a golf guy. Like I'm into Justin Herbert.
I like that shot they had before the game of Harbaugh pounding his pads and just yelling at him, and he was just kind of like,
I'm into Herbert, but he'll disappear for a quarter in a heartbeat. Let there be no doubt.
I just can't get past the Ravens going 7-5. Seems crazy to me. And I think they're going to be able to move the ball up and down. The Chargers, Mac didn't play last week. The Chargers defense doesn't seem as crazy good as it was 5-6 weeks ago to me.
I agree.
All right. That's our third one.
I like the Ravens.
And then I really want to work the Broncos into something. The Broncos that line is now up to 6.5 in Vegas.
No way. No, can't do that. That's way too many points.
Well, we're going to put them in a parlay.
Thank God. Whew, that's a relief.
Vegas's offense, this is really something. So Amir Abdullah was trending as a roster trend in fantasy leagues this week because he has a chance to be the running. And I was like, Amir Abdullah feels like he's been around a while. He's 31.
Wow.
I would have guessed like 25. So he's like almost Zeke Elliott's age. He's going to be the running back. Their quarterback situation's a debacle. They have no receivers.
No.
It's just Brock Bowers over and over again.
Yep.
Which I'm pretty sure Sean Payton is aware of Brock Bowers. I don't know how the Raiders, Denver's defense, it's first yards per play, second sacks, third hits. Vegas can't block. I get that it's in Vegas, but and you also have Denver coming off a big win last week, but I just don't see how. I think Vegas might be done. They might be a short for the rest of the year until we get to some sort of weird Christmas situation. So Broncos with the Chiefs in Carolina, they're favored by 10.5.
Okay.
Chiefs coming off a loss.
Yeah.
Carolina's defense, 32nd against the run and 31st on first downs. Just feels like the Chiefs will move the ball and do Chief stuff. So Chiefs down to -2.5. Broncos money line. And then your team, the Washington Commanders, aka the C words.
Yeah.
Favored by 10.5 against the Cowboys. Can we just have them win by 3? Can we have KC win by 3, Washington wins by 3, and the Broncos win? That is +103 on FanDuel, and I would like to do it.
I love it. That's a dessert parlay. 3 nice ingredients pulled together to make beautiful harmony in our mouths. If it was what are you doing for your dessert? Are you a pumpkin pie guy for Thanksgiving dessert? What are you putting in your mouth for that?
I love pumpkin pie, but I also really love pecan pie.
Oh, great.
And what I like to do is get a slice of each and then eat both and even mix the bites.
Let me recommend that you add one more because this is, have you had sweet potato pie?
Oh, sweet potato pie is great.
Magnificent.
Yeah, I would totally add that. So you go a menage a pie.
Yeah. Forget it, man. We can do this in proper Thanksgiving style.
That sounds great.
I want to give out all of my thanks to those beautiful
sweet
pies.
Potato pie, pumpkin pie,
and pecan pie.
And pecan pie all together.
I want to F-bomb that one.
Call that one the Joe House is asleep on the couch pie. Because that's what would happen about 14 minutes after.
That's the full pie parlay. That's what that is. We're getting the pies ready. Everybody's getting the ingredients. Everybody's, going to the store this weekend to pull it together. We'll be going to the store this weekend with all the extra money in our pockets from that delicious pie parlay, baby.
Yeah, we'll make that the pie parlay. I was thinking, I watch The Sopranos every night before I go to bed because my wife's asleep. And so I finished season 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to stay with these guys. I circled back, started with one. So Pine Barrens was on last night.
Oh, my God.
which, is the legendary
You
Sopranos
can't really
episode.
go to bed after you watch that.
No, I was so fired
hours.
up.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll watch 20 minutes. I ended up watching the whole thing. But they're in the car and Chris finds the ketchup packets and then gives them the ketchup packets and there's relish. And Paulie Walnuts is the funniest character of all time. I think he's funnier than any comedy guy. And he's eating the ketchup and he's like, mix it with the relish. Mix it with the relish, with the ketchup packets and the relish packets. And that's what made me think of the pumpkin pie, sweet potato pie, pecan pie is the Paulie Walnuts, mix it with the relish, dessert extravaganza. Mix it with the relish, Chrissy.
It's outrageous.
I'm going to lose my foot.
Before we move on, you don't have any interest in this Philadelphia LA Rams game? Because folks are, I've seen some arguments on both sides and people are really arguing, be careful. It's a be careful situation. And, especially Jalen Hurts, these nuts, you don't want to be in a situation
to me, I had it marked down as a stay away.
Okay.
Because, I thought the Pats absolutely could have beaten the Rams last week, and they did some of the dumbest shit. We blitzed Stafford the whole game. There were stats afterwards, after Sal and I did the pod, that they single covered Kupp and Nakua basically all game, which guess how that turned out? Terribly.
Right.
Mayo was just couldn't have been less aggressive in the worst possible situations, and yet the Pats had the ball with a chance to win the game. I just didn't think the Rams looked that good.
I'm with you, and
but I don't trust
keep waiting
the Eagles
for it. Well, that's it. Especially the Jalen Hurts, these nuts, has not been as accurate. He is running great. His legs look great. But here's the test and why I understand why people are advocating in favor of the Rams. Eagles,
they're home dogs. First of all, they're plus 2.5.
And the Eagles secondary deserves the plaudits that's receiving from the draft of those two rookies. They've been playing very well, but this is an entirely different class of offense if this offense really gets going that the Eagles are up against. So I just wanted to make sure we talked through it, didn't have a conviction on it.
So the case is they kind of went straightforward last week because they knew they had the Pats game, knowing this Eagles game was coming. McVay against Fangio.
Yeah,
this is a kitchen sink game. That's one of the reasons I like the Ravens. I think the Ravens, it's a kitchen sink game.
Love it.
Because
great.
You're 7-5. You're out of the AFC North. Now you might be like a 6 seed. And you kind of need the game. And
because the 6 seed is going to get either Buffalo or the Chiefs in the first round.
No part of that
playoffs. Lord have mercy.
And the Rams need every game because they're in a dogfight with all those NFC West teams. So I do wonder if that's why it's a stay away though, because I can talk myself into each side. There was one other game I really liked. You're going to make fun of me. The Pats are plus 310 in Miami.
I'm not making fun of you. I think it's funny. I think that line's crazy. I understand it, but man, I'm not betting against Drake May. Let me have Drake May in a touchdown. That's fine. Is it 7 or 7.5?
Yeah. So I was wondering, is there? I mean, they're so stupidly coached that I almost feel like you should take the money line and just
wait. Which team?
Both teams. But there's you can get May for 200 plus yards, the Pats to win the game, and Drake May 2 passing touchdowns is 6-1. Drake May 1 passing TD, 200 yards passing, Pats win the game is plus 411, which doesn't really buy you that much value from the plus 310. I just didn't know if there was some sort of Drake May with the Pats bet that we wanted to think about.
I'll let you think about it. I know that I'll just play the side on the Pats. I'm not laying those points with the Dolphins. It's crazy.
You're not laying the 7.
No.
Do you like the 7 with the Pats, or do you like the plus 310 fuck it bet?
No. I prefer the points.
The plus 7.
Yeah, I prefer the plus 7.
All right, it's time. $1 Million Picks, week 12, heading into Thanksgiving, House's favorite day of the year. Is anything even close to Thanksgiving for you?
No, nothing rivals it.
I have a lot of people in my life who love Thanksgiving, including me, including nephew Kyle. You're number one. You love it the most. I've seen you be worried that you might have to be driven to the hospital because you ate too much. You passed out multiple times. You drink too much. You eat too much. If you die from overeating and over drinking, it will be on Thanksgiving.
Everybody will understand and say,
"They'll be like, house died. Was it Thanksgiving? It was." $1 million picks, week 12. We lost $355,000 last week, and it was really because of the Chiefs because they didn't cover a couple teases.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
It was. Did you say it was the 5th time in 124 games that the Chiefs have lost by more than 8 points? It's fine. We were on the wrong side of a historic event. We are still up $413,000 for the season, house, and we're going to put $200K on the following bets: the Baltimore Ravens -3 on the road against the LA Chargers. Are the Ravens going to go 7-5? I don't think so. Can they throw all over the place, the Chargers? I do think so. Is there a big brother getting revenge on his little brother? House, you're a big brother.
I mean, it's not even getting revenge. It's just taking advantage of what's rightfully yours. That's
right.
it.
You were first.
With your little brother. That's exactly right.
Yeah, you were first, and that's it.
That's all.
Chargers, great win last week.
Great win.
Some holes. Some things that we saw we didn't love. I just think the Ravens, they're not going 7-5. It's too ridiculous. They've already had 4 dumb losses. They're not going to have 5. Ravens -3. That's our first one. Cardinals +1.5 in Seattle. Seattle, a great, somewhat lucky win against a banged up Niners team that last week to save their season. I think the Cardinals run the ball all over the Seahawks. I like their defense. I think they lose that game in week 6 to the Packers. And since then, I like the way they look, House. I think they're going to win the division. We're both in.
Yeah, Cardinals coming off the bye week. And if you look at the last 10 games of the Seahawks at home, their against the spread numbers are not very good at home. The 12th man might need to step it up a little bit.
12th man in trouble. Maybe roommates with Joel Embiid. Packers at home, -1.5 against the Niners. Almost beat them last year in the playoffs. Couldn't do it. Catching a Niners team at a really nice time. I think this is a shell of the Niners team we think it is.
You're on your own on this one. You're on your own with this one.
You're not against it, but you're letting me do a guitar solo.
That's it.
I believe in the talent on this Packers team. They killed Arizona in week 6. I think they're due for another really good game. Fans are going to be fired up. Atmosphere is going to be great. Weather won't be awesome. I like the spot. Packers -1.5. So we're putting $200K on all 3 of those. And then we have a little parlay for you. Bring in the Chiefs in Carolina down to -2.5. Bring in your Washington Seawards against the carcass of the Dallas Cowboys down to 2.5 at home. And then the Denver Broncos, a team that did us really nicely last week that we've won some money on this year.
Wonderful.
That we really appreciate. Bo Nix making a run at Offensive Player of the Year with your guy, Jaden Daniels.
Fine.
We're going to take the Broncos money line in Vegas against a terrible Vegas team. You put those 3 together, Broncos money line, Chiefs -2.5, Washington -2.5, +103.
Good.
200K on that?
200K on that. Yes, sir.
All right.
It is the pie parlay after all.
And then last but not least, because it's Thanksgiving and House is feeling generous, he's allowing me to do a Drake May parlay because I love Drake May. He's playing in Miami.
Drake May podcast. He doesn't need a player pod. This is it.
Well, the line's too high. And this Pats team might be deficient in certain areas. They might be poorly coached.
Maybe.
They might make dumb mistakes every week, but they almost beat the Rams last week. And I think it's worth a flyer. Pats +7.5.
Good. Like the extra hook. That's a nice one.
Drake May 200+ passing yards.
Mm-hmm.
Drake May over 26.5 rushing yards. That's 2 scrambles.
Yeah.
Roll them out.
There. Maybe in the first half.
Drake May 1 passing touchdown. Just 1.
Okay.
Plus 341. We are putting 50K on that.
50K. Good number. That's right. Good number.
It's a little sprinkling.
The Drake May full facial.
Well, it's the Drake May, almost like the pie parlay you talked about earlier. Pecan pie, sweet potato pie, pumpkin pie. That's Drake May 200+ yards, over 26.5 rushing yards, 1+ passing touchdowns. Hop on the Drake May bandwagon right now. Those are the $1 million picks for week 12.